David Schuckman reporting there. Well, joining me now is Tom Burke, who's chairman of the environmental think tank E3G and a former government advisor on climate change. Thanks very much for coming in, Tom. We heard David there talking about some of the issues that are really now down to the wire and they need to sort out overnight. How optimistic do you think we can be?
I think we can be fairly optimistic. I think the French have done a really good job of setting this up in a way in which there's now a lot of pressure. And the people who really matter now aren't in Paris. They're the leaders in the capitals. There are phone calls going back to try and find that last bit of manoeuvre room that will let us get to the finish. And that's why I think there is a kind of mood of optimism, even though you've still got 1 or 2 points that really need to be ironed out.
Take us, if you can, and obviously it requires some imagination on your part as well, into those phone calls. Who are going to be the key players and what are they going to need to hear in order for them to sign on the dotted line? I
think probably the most important calls will be between Obama and President Xi. I think there will probably also be some fairly important calls between Merkel, say, and Modi. It's now really down to what the big players are doing, Europe, China, India, and the United States, and it's getting them to line up. And so it will be about the exact language. If you're talking about, are you talking about people having to review every 5 years or having an option to review every 5 years? It'll be down to that kind of subtlety in language, because what matters is how all this gets interpreted as you go back into everybody's, goes back to their country.
Is there, though, within that framework, then, a danger that things can become fudged, that we get something that looks like a great deal and then somehow people sort of can wheedle out of it or do it on their own terms a bit too much?
I think what really matters now is that it's not any longer about what the text says. What really matters is the overall political thrust. Because what we're really seeing is from coming out of Paris, is a clear sense that the world is now going to tackle climate change, go further and faster than it's done in the past. And that means that investors are going to start shifting their investment from high carbon into low carbon. And it's all those conversations everywhere else in the world that really matter. And, you know, they'll all be contested spaces. They won't be simple yes or no decisions. But there will be a review mechanism in there. And again, the exact wording of that review mechanism, because it's pretty important that countries believe that other countries are doing what they say. Now, every country, and this is really exceptional, every single country, developed and developing, has now taken on emission targets, ones they've developed themselves. Are they going to do what they say they're going to do? Is there a mechanism that you can verify?
And let's just deal with a couple of those points that David raised, particularly about where there's still some digging down to be done. This issue of who's going to pay to support poorer countries with the impact, essentially, of global warming, that's proved a little bit sticky.
I agree with you, and that's one of the ones you've expected to go down to the wire at the end of the day. I think it's now reasonably clear that the 100 billion a year promised in Copenhagen is going to be delivered. But the real question is how much is going to come after 2020, when especially the issue of how are you going to pay for the damage that's done gets taken forward.
And just a final thought, Tom. What has made the difference? You referenced Copenhagen there, and people thinking back will remember how painful that was when we thought there was going to be something magnificent and then suddenly it all fell apart. The leaders didn't even need to turn up. What has made the difference this time to create what you seem to be saying is a very positive atmosphere?
I think the real difference is that the political risk of not acting has gone up a lot and the political cost of doing things has gone down a lot as renewables have got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So it's easier for governments to make the commitments that are necessary to drive us forward.
OK. We shall watch closely and see how it's looking tomorrow morning. But for now, Tom Burke from E3G, thanks very much for your time.